Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, thank you once again for joining Industrial Talk, a platform that is dedicated to industrial professionals all around the world. Because you're bold, brave, you dare greatly, you collaborate, you solve today's problems, and you're making the world a better place each and every day. Thank you. Thank you so much for what you do and your continued support. All right, we were broadcasting on-site IoT Solutions World Congress, Barcelona, and talking to a gentleman by the name of Larry Pang. IoTex is the company, and we are attempting and working and succeeding at demystifying blockchain. Let's get a cracking. It's always an interesting conversation to talk about blockchain, what it means, where it's going, how it's important, and how do you link that to this whole digital journey that everybody appears to be on. But it's important. It's absolutely important. And he does a great job. No doubt about it. He does a great job. Paper, pencil, that type of conversation. Look out for him. We're going to have all the contact information for Larry out on Industrial Talk. So fear not, reach out, collaborate, do what you need to do, innovate, educate. You know the routine. All right. Out on Industrial Talk, we have some webcasts. And we're looking to expand on those webcasts. But right now we have a couple that are out there, supply chain as well as utilities. Both of them are on demand. Just, go in there and look at them and continue to educate. We also have all of the other podcasts that we have been producing from industrial experts such as Larry. So it's all out on Industrial Talk. And if you have any interest whatsoever to be engaged with Industrial Talk, just go out there and say, Scott, I'm interested in knowing more. So that's all I'm asking. And let's have a conversation. We also have out there all of the events that we will be attending. And if you just go out there and you're going, I'm going to that one, you need to just look me up and say, Scott, I want to tell my story at this particular event, amplify that message. And just keep in mind, you're helping other industrial professionals succeed. That's the noble cause right there, babe. All right, let's get on with the conversation. Larry Pang, IoTex is the company, demystifying our wonderful blockchain. So let's get cracking. Listeners, we're going to be talking blockchain. Do not go away on this one. Larry has guaranteed me that he's going to be able to demystify blockchain, why it's important for us in this world, in this digital transformation world. So there you go. How about that? Don't let us down now. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Like you said, Barcelona is just an amazing city. They got two conferences going on kind of side by side.
Have you been to that other one?
I have, yeah. It's much more like, it's an audio-visual kind of integrated system.
Did you see that hologram one?
I did, yeah. There's a lot of holograms over there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You just walk by and you're staring at it.
Yeah. They got some kind of like demos out here where, but it's hard to visualize like connectivity.
Yeah, it is.
Visualize data. But,
it is.
For audio visual systems, all these big cameras.
Freaking splashy over there. It is, man. Yeah. And they got it, man. Lights are everywhere, but it is pretty cool. But it's a heck of a venue too.
It is
massive.
Yeah.
You can get lost big time.
And apparently this is one of several large conference venues in Barcelona. So, there's a couple of conference organizers we were in touch with. They're trying to set up a blockchain conference later, and they were just exploring venue after venue after venue. But this one, more traditional. Looks like a giant airplane hangar where we're at.
That's right.
But
concrete everywhere.
Very nicely. Yeah. Very well done.
And the other thing that they do is that they custom build all of the spots. So they're out there with their saws and nails and hammering and creating these unique. It's an incredible operation, honestly, man. It's one to behold. First time here?
First time at IoT Solutions World Congress,
yeah.
For sure. We been doing a lot of blockchain conferences around the world. IoTex is kind of at the intersection of blockchain and the Internet of Things. But actually walking around here, you feel a lot of people more interested in blockchain these days. I think like before pre-COVID conference era, it was hard to find anyone that would give it the time of day. But I think, more demonstrable pilots, more demonstrable use cases coming out, starting to become a little more tangible for people. So,
in just a short period of time, I think we were here 3 years ago, COVID hit, and I can vividly remember the conversations that I were having at that particular time versus the conversations I'm having. And there's been this, again, a massive leap forward in hey, we can collect data over here to where, hey, we've got to make it work. There's tactical, information there, and how do we do it? And far more mature of a conversation to have. The other thing that I find is that IoT is like this miscellaneous file now. It includes anything and everything.
Yeah.
And that becomes confusing, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, blockchain fits in there someplace. Somebody said, yeah, it's IoT blockchain. I don't know. I don't know. All right. Let's give us the listeners a little background, Larry, on who you are, and then let's get into sort of what you're doing for blockchain.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Larry Pang. Was educated at MIT, come from Los Angeles, and before I joined the tech industry, I was in consulting for 5 years.
With who?
It's a company called Oliver Wyman, one of the strategy consulting firms that mainly focus on financial strategy consulting.
Yeah.
Worked for a lot of tier one banks, financial intermediaries, financial utilities, and specifically working with these companies more on digital transformation. So was in the on-prem to cloud kind of conversion era.
Yeah.
And back in the day, getting people to think about putting their data on cloud was like pulling teeth, right? It was back in 2016.
Yeah, you're out just then. It's not that far ago.
Not that long ago.
No,
yeah.
Big time.
And the thing that really convinced them that it was safe to start adopting these cloud-based systems was one of the regulators, FINRA, put their data on the cloud. So that opened the floodgates.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah, that was it. So it did a lot of the design around that, the strategy, the budgeting, the financial planning around these big digital transformation moves that are kind of now just underway, right? There's a lot of planning involved to gut legacy systems. We were working with banks that store data on tape. And these are some of the big companies that a lot of people put their money on,
Tape.
Yeah.
And then they were struggling with putting it in the cloud, and they're on tape. God.
Yeah, this was pre-Tableau, and the thing that really encouraged them to do this is they realized they couldn't run any analysis on this data on tape. So having these cloud mechanisms.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting what the psychology of making some of these large changes to tech stacks looks like. But now, I think everyone's looking forward to what's next. A lot of art talks about IoT, AI, blockchain. And they need these concerted strategies, not just to implement one at a time, but how these things really mesh.
The reality is it's here and it's going to happen, and we've got to do our best, and that's what this sort of venue is all about. Do our best to be able to do it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of hype, but I think we're getting real now.
Yeah.
So how does blockchain fit into all of this? This is IoT. How do we start demystifying that?
Yeah. So, post consulting, I joined IoTex as part of the founding team. And like Scott said, we're it's a blockchain and IoT platform. We got started in 2017. And, it's really the concept of combining tamper-proof hardware with tamper-proof software in the form of blockchain in order to create tamper-proof applications, right? But even taking a big step back, the way I see blockchain is a way to facilitate trust amongst people that don't necessarily trust each other. Today, this is generally done through intermediaries and contracts and legal pursuits. But if you kind of replace that with open source code that any party can kind of dissect and verify that this is what the intermediary is doing, and this is the type of relationship that is brokering between people that, maybe trust each other from like a collaboration perspective, but they want to have a shadow of doubt that the things that are going on in their business relationship are what is supposed to happening. No backdoors, no funny business with the data. To me, that's what blockchain really represents, the way for parties to work with each other.
Give us a use case. Take that trust concept, or it's not a concept, it's that reality.
Yeah.
Give us a use case that brings it on home.
I think one interesting place, and this is kind of where the enterprise is really looking into these days, is around supply chain, right? Supply chain has so many different types of stakeholders, from distributors to manufacturers to service providers, right? And when you think about supply chain, there's always someone at fault for something that goes wrong, right? And the way that people find out who's at fault is they kind of retroactively seek the truth, right? Even think about like an automotive recall. Who is at fault for the airbag not, deploying, and Toyota have to recalling all these vehicles? There's a lot of investigatory action and like legal action that needs to be had, right? It's almost like finding the needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
But if people were proactively submitting their data to a blockchain through that entire process, almost kind of like cover your ass insurance in a way, right? Then the answer is already there. If you're not doing anything wrong, and you want to submit your data to a blockchain, and that blockchain can verify that, time-stamped, this is what happened. You have a real history of every stakeholder's actions throughout a process. And that's the way to build trust amongst people.
See, and in the world of supply chain, that is definitely in the forefront of a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of stress, a lot of tension, a lot of problems with it, right? Mm-hmm. Have you, in that use case, have you approached companies, and have you had some sort of success saying, "Oh, I get it," but everybody in the world of logistics, they like that complexity to a certain extent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to think about blockchain not as a panacea. It's not a silver bullet that's going to solve everything. But in instances where, you look at some type of end-to-end workflow or some type of end-to-end process, for areas you think lack a little bit of trust, inserting blockchain into that as a point solution first before kind of gutting your entire legacy system in replacement of blockchain. That's not, I think, where we're headed right now. But if you add blockchain as kind of a point solution to areas that lack trust, it could be a really enabling factor for, removing some of the legal kind of litigation aspect of things that are more retroactive. Blockchain is a very proactive technology, in my mind. Yeah.
The thing that stands out, I think trust is key, and that is just with anything, right? We've spoken to many in the IoT, AI, augmented reality, cloud, whatever, edge. We've spoke to many, and those are great service providers. But if I'm a user of those solutions, I need to trust. Yeah. Even then, and trust is powerful.
Yes.
Because I want to go down this road. I need to trust that you're going to, facilitate that journey, mm-hmm. so that I'm not frustrated.
Yeah.
And so I think that if blockchain is truly, there's a solution there that creates trust, I think that's important.
Yeah, you bring up a really important point, which is, we live in an era today where who to trust and why to trust is probably like the biggest challenge of our generation, right? And, this is where open source technologies as a starting point really come into play, right? Where people can understand the algorithms that are powering their solutions. That's step one, right? Then you create data from these algorithms, and if you're able to trust that this data was created in a trustworthy way, that not only you can verify, but even other people, even third parties can verify that, deterministically that, this algorithm produced this data. That's kind of the starting point, on top of which you can start to layer on additional business logic on top of that data that everyone else can verify. You see kind of how this chain kind of strings together, right? So blockchain as a ledger of trusted data is already a really good use case, right? A lot of the enterprises we talk to today, that want to collectively decide, hey, we're going to put our data onto a blockchain. This is more talking about the private, like consortium blockchain use cases. Collectively decide, hey, we're going to put all of our data together so that if something bad happens, we can collectively understand who's at fault, or how to remedy the situation in like a clearer fashion. That's already a great use case. A lot of enterprises we talk to just want an immutable, compliance-friendly, audit-friendly database of data that they can go back to for whatever kind of reason, right? But I think the next step on top of that foundation of trusted data is you add trusted applications that can act upon that data, but also in a completely trustworthy way. And this is where the concept of like a smart contract comes in, right? Smart contract is kind of a taboo term these days. It's not just smart, but it's also open source. So if you have data that you know has been generated in a trustworthy way, and you apply business logic that anyone can verify, then again, you can kind of even go back and retrace the steps about how you came to this endpoint, right? And that's what verifiability means to me. Things, yeah.
It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems big.
Mhm.
Is there a way to be able to deploy a sort of a blockchain structure that creates that trust, but it doesn't have to be huge? It could just be a starting point.
Yeah.
Because just like many in that are in manufacturing and industry, they just need to start small, prove it, right? Let's do it, prove it, move it,
Yeah.
and expand upon it. But can we do that with a sort of a blockchain type of approach?
I think so. Maybe, let's think about like a traditional service level agreement, right? Going back to a supply chain scenario. Maybe, it's just point A to point B. Maybe there's a few stakeholders involved in getting something that needs to be below freezing temperature from point A to point B, right? This is kind of where like a trusted hardware, trusted device, consider like an asset tracker that, measures GPS, temperature, and has a secure element that will sign this data so people can also verify, right? This is also an important prerequisite to using blockchains is the data that you put on a blockchain needs to also be verifiable, or else everything downstream, the business logic you apply
it doesn't
to
work.
Yeah, then
So
you're
apart.
adding junk to junk,
Yeah.
and the end result's going to be junk,
Yeah.
right? But assume that you have some trusted trackers that are reporting the truth, right? This is a piece of hardware that anyone can verify. It's just doing its job, and is doing its job in a trustworthy way, right? Then you can create a simple kind of service level agreement, smart contract to say, if this, then that, right? If the temperature dips below 0 degrees, or goes above 0 degrees if it's not meant to, then, issue a 10% penalty to the person who is in possession of it at the time.
And in that scenario, that scenario does say, hey, okay, we've got the logic in there, we've got the parameters, we've got the agreement that there will be a penalty if it goes above 10, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it automatically delivers it, and it's trustworthy. It's like, hey, you got the device. We all agree to this device, and it went above 10 or whatever it is, and that's why you got this whatever penalty.
Yeah, and one thing that's also really interesting to think about for blockchain is that we live in a penalty-based world today. Blockchain has the opportunity to also add incentives for doing things
that's
not good but great.
Yeah,
right? It's kind of like your job.
Yeah,
if you do a bad job, your employer has the right to fire you, right?
Yeah.
But if you do a great job, then you're going to get a bonus, and a lot of people that's what they hang on to, right?
Yeah.
So going back to that service level agreement example,
Yeah.
If you go above 0 degrees Celsius for something that's not meant to be above freezing, then you're going to get penalized, right? But if this is something really, really valuable to you, you want it to be not even close to 0 degrees, then you can say, hey, I'm going to give you a 10% bonus if you keep it below 5 degrees Celsius. And if you're between 0 and 5, then you're going to get the standard kind of payments. But all of that can be encoded, and the parameters can be collectively decided by the people that are operating this blockchain, all without some type of intermediary or service provider that you have to pay for this service, right? You can kind of code up these service level agreements, smart contracts, in a way that is very user owned. And I think that's just like a different way to think about.
See, and that's interesting because you could theoretically, if you're in the business and you're cutting these contracts, why don't you try one that is in sort of a blockchain structure? Because you could do it, right?
Yeah.
And cut just do it.
Yeah. And another crazy example is that
That's pretty cool.
we're talking about kind of B2B relationships, right? But there's also like business to consumer relationships. And one example that people seem to like, and I guess I'll share it. It's going to sound stupid when I say it. So let me preface it.
Bring it in here. Stupid comment here.
It's kind of around corporations and the way that people sleep, right? Or the way that they do healthy activities. So, back in when I was in my consulting days, my corporation gave me a wearable for Christmas, like a wearable, healthcare wearable.
Right.
And they said, please use it. But there's no proof that, I was using this to actually track my health or track my sleep and make that even better.
Stick it on your dog.
Exactly. Or just shelf it, right? A lot of people I know just, got that as a gift, maybe flipped it on Craigslist, flipped it on eBay.
Yeah.
But what if your corporation, invited everyone into some type of like open kind of blockchain scenario, right? Where they inserted some incentives into it, maybe in the form of money or in the form of some type of token or points, and said, look, if anyone anonymously can prove that they got 7 hours of sleep on a Sunday night and got into work fresh on a Monday, then they're going to be able to claim these rewards. And the most important part is it's almost like a anonymized way to do this, like an opt-in mechanism, right? So if I was out partying on a Sunday night and I don't want to share that with my employer, then I don't have to opt in to share that information. But if I did get those incentives, I don't even have to share my name, right? You can kind of use these anonymized identifiers to say, employee XYZ got 7 hours of sleep, and they're using their wearable to prove that to the smart contract. This is kind of where the concept, again, of tamper-proof hardware and tamper-proof software comes into play to issue incentives. Maybe not as stupid when I say
I don't have a problem with it. I like working out, so I don't have a problem. That's an interesting use case. Hey, here comes Larry. He's got that doggone Fitbit on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, never mind.
Exactly.
He's going home early.
Yeah.
He's fighting for the incentive come Monday.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's just see, there's just so much. I find if we can do it incrementally, if we can just, because in the financial world, it's being used.
Yeah.
So that's good. They do it. If it's in the financial world, you got to bring it here in the industrial world and be able to do that there. I think that would be a way to go.
Yeah. It's only when, the use cases start to get a little complex that this starts to break down, right? Which is why, the simplest types of things that are really taking off in the public blockchain world, which is more like, the Ethereum and like the cryptocurrency aspect of things is, the most simple type of interaction is lenders of money and borrowers of money, right? And traditionally that's done through a bank. But people will be surprised to know how many intermediaries are taking 1 basis point, 2 basis points, and by the time you know it, they're taking a whole % of that transaction for just relaying data. And that's like a very, protectionist type of ecosystem that, is not going to change unless we invent kind of a new system.
Yeah, see there.
Yeah. So these kind of protocols that can facilitate. Yeah.
Nobody's going to get rid of that soon, because they're gonna fight. No.
Tooth and nail.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
All right. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so IoTex, check out IoTex.io. And yeah, we got a lot of different use cases across consumer, across enterprise. Yeah, so check us out. For sure.
Well done, Larry. Making it demystifying blockchain. I learned a little bit more, but I still can learn a lot more because I'm not there yet. But I like it. I think it's going to happen, right? It just is. All right. Listeners, we are once again broadcasting from IoT Solutions World Congress. Put it on your bucket list. Great. You get to meet people like Larry, who's helping us succeed going forward. It's all awesome. All right, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. So you're saying to yourself, Scott, I want to get a hold of Larry. It'll be out at industrialtalk.com, so fear not, it will be there. So get a hold of him because you will not be disappointed. Thank you very much for joining. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, say it. You need to say it to yourself. You are better because of that conversation. You are more educated because of that conversation. And you're saying to yourself, Scott, I want to connect with Larry and find out more. Industrial Talk, reach out. All the contact information is there. Blockchain's here. Blockchain's going to continue to be here. Digital transformation is here. There's gold in that data. And everybody's talking about it. And if I had a nickel every time somebody says, Scott, we need to get the data, I'd be rich. So, but I'm not. So, but anyway, data's it. Data's king. And getting that trusted Data is really important. Again, go out to Industrial Talk, connect with Larry. We have webcasts, we have events, we have podcasts, and it's all about educating, collaborating, and innovating to succeed going forward. Do that at industrialtalk.com. All right, be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out with Larry, and you will change the world. We're going to have another great conversation shortly, so stay tuned.